My name's Chris. Welcome back to Flat Tank Journey. Down in my other shed today, having a look at my Velocette. So, a lot of conjecture about my Velocette after I posted some pictures on a Velocette Facebook group I'm in, asking for advice about the gearbox and the engine. And in last week's video, if you haven't seen it, go back and have a look at it. We were having a look at the engine and pulling it apart. Did come apart eventually. And the gearbox and what was missing. It led to a whole range of discussions online from a couple of people who were really super, not aggressive at all. Maybe old motorbike groups are a little bit tamer. And the discussion about what year it is, and appears might be not a Model D, might be a little bit later, maybe 22 or 23. And there's some conjecture over the gearbox and a whole range of things. It led someone to also comment about the rear pack rack and whether or not it was off, I think I'll get this right, a Hudson Autocycle, that they felt it wasn't Velocette. I don't know about that. It looks like it's the correct one to me, and I believe it. Well, I got it with the bike, and I believe it's always been with the bike. I don't really know. From what I can see online, there's either a bracket that runs from here up underneath the pack rack to here on the frame, or more likely it runs from here to the seat. We talked about that before, and I can't really understand it. That said, I'm not a pack rack lover. So it could get thrown onto the pyre of, I don't like you and you need to go. Not sure. So unless I find a satisfactory result, it's going. Not sure what to do. The other general consensus, and I think it was Robert that commented, collect the swarf from the holes that you drilled in those alloy guards, glue them back into the alloy guards and take them to a swap meet, because that's the best place for them. They don't belong on the bike. Robert, I'm inclined to agree with you. So this week I thought we'd get on. I did some stuff about guards, and we'll get these guards off and get something else on. First thing we might have a look at is just getting this pack rack off and out of the road. So I've actually got the bolts done from the inside because I think they're like a BSA and they thread through the frame to hold this on. That's why I think the pack rack belongs with the bike. Let me get the other side and then we'll be able to get it off. And of course you can't get one of these bolts out or both of them out without taking the rear wheel out, which is an absolute pain in the butt. But you can spring the pack rack off. So there it is. I actually still believe that I'm 80% sure it's Velocette, but you know, two people commented separately that they thought it might have been, yeah, Hudson Autocycle, something like that. Up for you to decide. Next job, no doubt, is just getting the bolts out of the mudguard. And then we'll get that off. Don't stress about the stand clip because it's able to be removed. We haven't lost that. Robert, yes, I probably should have collected the swarf and glued it back in the holes. But you know what? Maybe someone at a swap meet will want this with 4 little holes drilled in it and it'll be just their thing. We'll put that out of the road too. So it's not super stable, but an old £9 red brick. an old side one. And these were fresh bolts that I put in tapped out holes, and they went in really easily. Right. Let's, while I've got this out, I'll show you the rear wheel and the brake drum plate that cleaned up really well. Come and have a look. So here's the cleaned up brake plate. Now, when I first got it, I thought this was a hole from, garbage, but it's a weird little vent. And it's actually in the casting. It's a bit beaten up, but, it's not too bad. Here's the arm, the grease nipple, all this was on it. Now, I cleaned up the bearings inside and re-greased them, and I forget what sort of grease that is, it's whatever I had. Here's the backing plate, and it's not too bad. Not super, but not too bad. And it all goes back together. And I misplaced one of the nuts. On the other side, it still actually had the dust shield that looks as though it's one-handed, you get it back on, looks as though it's correct. That's pretty super. General consensus also said that these are not the correct rims and that it should have had narrower bead edge rims. And I think I'll do that in the future. That'll look much better. Let's have a look at this guard. I've got a couple of choices for guards. This is a new one that Pete makes just outside of Colac, and it's got a width of 95 or 96 mils. It's one of his really early ones where he was shooting for 100 mil and didn't quite make it, and he put aside. This is one I had in stock, and you might remember it from the rally, the back of the rally. I used one of these on it. It's the same profile, and it's oddly 95, 96 mil wide. So I did get a pair of these others from Pete, but I'm going to take one back. I haven't paid for either of them, so it didn't really matter. But what you're going to see is we're going to end up with this look, and it's going to be much better. It fits really neatly in the bottom of the frame, and it'll fit pretty good in the top here underneath the seat. I don't know what to call that. Isn't that weird? And they're both really close to one another in profiles. Actually, they're not. They're a little bit different. I don't know why I thought that. But they'll both look all right in the rear of the frame. They both need cut off at the ends, but they both fit really well. For some reason, I think that this new one is the back guard. I don't really know why. And the other one will fit in the front. Now, this front one will require a fair bit cut off it, and you won't be able to see from there. Will require a fair bit cut off it. But we're still going to end up with a nice shape. I actually think, I might have this around the wrong way, that one that's tucked a bit harder, or the radius is a little bit less, is the one for the front, I think. But either way, I feel okay about them, and I feel as though they'll look all right. Or at least I hope they will, especially after I've drilled holes in them. Pete's guard, I wouldn't say it was cheap, but I didn't think he was ridiculously expensive. Let's get the rear wheel in and just have a look at the guard over the top of the frame. Sorry, over the top of the wheel is what I meant. Got it in the wrong way. I've got you looking square on at the bike, so you can get a look at what the guard might look like. It doesn't really matter which way it goes, but I think that's about the right profile for the tyre and the right profile for the wheel, and we'll get a much better look. It's still too long, but I think this is the one for the rear. It's tight, it's even, and when I look at it, I think, oh yeah, that looks about right. The other one has got a different radius. Yeah, that was the way. We can see that this one, way different radius, needs compressed or the radius altered, and we don't have the right radius. So, gonna put that aside. I've got a second one of those if this one doesn't work out for the front. So no drama, dairy farmer, it'll all be okay. This really is just a matter of getting a nice pattern to the end of this, a nice rounded off look. And I'm going to use one of the alloy guards to draw it on and cut it out. So let's get in and do that. Then I can drill the first hole, mark the second hole, and then let's have a talk about where to go from there. With a Sharpie, I'm just laying the brownish coloured guard. It's actually in primer, it's not rusty, over the top of the second one, because it's got a profile cut to it. And I'm just going to mark it. And then, I don't know whether you can see it, but I've got a little pattern. I'm going to cut that out and we'll get a roundish look. Pete's left a V to it, but I'm not super keen on. Don't know why, but I'm going to cut these out. Perfect. It's got a little flap disc. I'm just going to give this a clean up, mainly so I don't cut myself. That's the main reason. And we've gone from the point to what I would have said is a pretty civilised pattern. Don't look too bad, eh? There's the shape of the guard, and I think it, you know, looks clean and tidy. And that's all I'm really shooting for here. So back to the bike, and you can see it fits really neatly in the bottom of the frame. And when I'll get you off the tripod in a bit, it'll just hang through. Now, with the other guard, I had it cut off, you know, square at the bottom. You couldn't see any guard. Suggestion was just to leave it hang through a little bit. Now, in the end, I don't suppose it matters. I will let it hang through a little bit, and we'll see where we go from there. I don't think it matters to me. It's not a big deal. Now, I was looking at, and you can't see ahead because it's not worth seeing. I was looking at the guard from the first one, and this hole, the hole down the bottom, is in the middle. It's the other one that's not in the middle. And what I did the first time was, I took a piece of tape and I marked it out as a ruler in 1 centimetre increments. Oops. And I had about 130 mil. So then all I did was peel the tape off the bench, and this is not a precise science, so don't judge me. I started on the edge. And I ran it across the guard. Then I can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 3/4 centimetres, or 107 kind of mil, which, you know, really, there's the middle. It should be about 53 mil, which would be about there. I'm going to pull the tape off again and measure the 53 mil. Confused myself. Yeah, I was spot on. There it is. So, again, this is not an exact science. This is just how I did it. Now I'm going to go up the width of the tape from the bottom. That's where I'm going to put the hole. Why? Because I can. And I don't know, that's because I can. I also watch Chad, who uses, and I do watch a little bit of Chad, doesn't float my boat all the time, uses masking tape as a measure, width-wise, so that the tape, once you laid it on the edge here, that's the same distance on both sides, and you've got a straight line. Kind of clever. Not kind of clever, it is clever, and it lets you get a straight line from this point to this point. And I like that. Simple solution. Don't make it too hard. I'm going to drill a hole and hope for the best. I get a hole drilled, and I'm hoping it's pretty much in the middle. I try not to overthink these things, or it takes you 6 weeks to drill a hole. And I don't want that. I do want it to be pretty close. So I've just put a flat washer and a spring washer on that and given it a rough tighten up. And I like it already. It looks much, 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 much better. We need to mark the centre of this next one and see if we can get that so that the guard doesn't tilt one way or the other. And I appreciate that's not much use to you from side on, but you know what I mean, hey? I've just put a mark either side of this frame piece, and I can get a score mark now where the bolt goes. That's the bottom of the bolt. So now I only need to decide where the centre is. It's not as simple as you'd like it to be. I'm going for the centre of the frame, not the centre, and hoping that that will centre up the wheel. Because it'd be odd if your guard wasn't in the centre of the frame. And I'm looking at the down tube and saying, yeah, that looks right. And so there's a little bit more room chain side than there is anywhere else. Let's get off and measure a little bit more accurately than I've been measuring. I don't normally show you all of my anxiety issues and my measuring and calculating, but today, I don't know, seems a little more relevant. So I'm just doing a double check on this. I'm going to get a screwdriver to put through that hole to see if we can line these all up. Yeah. And then, if I get the guard equidistant, which will be a problem, I should be really close to where I want it to be. That's better. This way, pardon me, this way, I'm kind of double checking my measurements and double checking where I think the hole should be. Just gives me a slightly better chance of not getting it wrong. The hole has been drilled. Let's see what happens. Well, you're looky there. Looky there. Actually got it to line up, which is a pretty pleasing result for me, because I don't always get this stuff exactly right. Now's the time when I just run out of fingers. Actually, for the sake of the argument, I'm going to put the bolt in the other way, because I probably will put a dome nut over it anyway. You know what I'm like? I love me a dome nut. But this is going to get us a look at it to see what we think of it. Super. That looks super. There you go. All right, your side on. And for me, I've got, you know, 3 of my fat fingers, nearly 4. And I've got 3 of my fat fingers, nearly 4. And I've probably only got 3 and not quite at the top. But, you know, we're really close. Come and have a look at the rest of it. I hope you're as pleased as I am. That looks super, looks so much better. I think by the time the seat gets straightened up and the seat pile goes down a bit, I think we're going to get a much better look at it. That was another comment someone made. You know, the seat's up too high and so are the bars. But I'm a big man. Don't know. Probably never ride it anyway. Now, that looks so much better that it's just not funny. So it is hanging a little bit below the frame, but I can cut it off, not the end of the world. The profile is so much more age appropriate that it's just not funny. It just looks right. Now, don't judge the back just too quickly. It just needs some stays to get it to be right. It is down the center of the frame, even though it doesn't quite look like it. A little twist. Yes, it was $200. I paid for it, but it, you know, was in my neighbourhood. There's no freight involved. I actually haven't paid for it. I could test it, see what I thought of it before I even bought it. I think he's done a super job. I'm not unhappy with it. It certainly looks a lot better than dun dun dun. That looks like shit. So let's move on from that. I'm sitting down looking at the back of the torpedo because it's out in the shed with me. And I'm looking at where the guard finishes. And it finishes well above the centre line of the axle, is what I'd call. And so I need to establish a height and then cut this other guard off because I actually like that guard. That guard looks right, it sits right, and is a much better look. So looking at the bike now, I need to decide. I had this piece of bent bar, and I'm not sure whether you can see, but it's got a bend in it about here, and I've taped it to the frame. And then I'm just gonna roughly come across from there. And I'm gonna mark the guard and decide that I'm an inch, 2 inches above what I call the centre line of the axle. And I think we'll get a better look. So it's a cut off about there. I'm gonna do it. I've got brave. Yeah, didn't bother showing you, but I've hacked that much. So I suppose I've hacked 4 inches or 100 mil for us Australians off the bottom. And I can always hack a bit more off, but I ain't welding a bit more on because you know what I weld like. I'll put this back on the bike, give me a minute, and we'll see how it looks. There you go. I think it looks substantially better. And when I get back on this side, I think that, you know, I could probably cut a little more off, but I don't think I will. I don't think I'll sweat it. You know, I just think it looks good. I'll grab you off the tripod, we'll have a little look, and then we'll move on to the front guard because I've had a change of heart in the front guard. Come and have a look. There we go. A much better outcome, much cleaner. Really clean in here around that bottom behind the gearbox and below the seat. Guard's actually sitting really well. We've got a really pretty reasonable, consistent gap across the guard to the tyre, to the rim, if you know what I mean. We certainly have, we're running down the centre of the down tube. We've got a lot of flex, so not a big issue. We can tidy that up with some guard stays. This is a moment a bit like when I bolted the alloy guard on. I shouldn't have done it, but I did because I wanted it to work. Now, I have this guard and I was just going to bolt it on because I want it to work because I have it. But let me put that other one down. In essence, it isn't the right profile. It's the wrong shape. I think I'll be sorry if I do it. It'll prop out at the back and up at the front, and it'll look bad. I really need a third guard. Now, sadly, I have a third guard. It's a full length one, and it is a tighter profile. And I'm sure it's the right thing to do. Do I want to? Well, no. No, I don't, because it's 200 bucks. But I think these could have gone on a swap meet store for 25 or 30 bucks a piece, and I'd have got 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks back. This one is lower quality, and I think I could get maybe 80 or 100 for it. My point is, I wasted money by doing this, and I could waste another 100 by doing that and still spoil the look of the bike. I'm going to cut up a new one. I'm going to cut it as carefully as I can so that I'm hoping I'm going to cut it exactly in half, and I'll have another front guard. Let's see how we go. So off camera, I hacked a peek into the guard. I just marked it again, and it's not bad. I haven't decided whether that's the back or the front yet. If I do a better job of this end, then this could be the front and that could be the back. We'll see. Now, sadly, I don't have enough for two guards. I've only got one. I still think in the look of the bike, this guard was cut off at about the right length. And give or take a little bit, this is about the right length for the bike. It's not close enough to half and half that I would cut this any shorter and spoil it. Again, it becomes a false economy. I already blew it once and I could have sold it. I've chosen not to blow it a second time. Don't blow it a third time. Do you know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. I might be a bit of a lunatic. I'm going to get this guard off. It just has two little bolts up here. I'll show you where they are because you didn't see it the first time, and then we'll look at it. Just going to show you these mounting tabs. So there's the tabs on the bottom of the girder, and they're fixed. It's part of the girder fork, and there's the head of the bolts. And in reality, you know, I would turn those bolts the other way and put a dome nut on them and clean them up and make them look really smart. Let's have a look underneath and you'll see the flat washer and the spring washer and the nuts. And I'm just going to take this off and then use this guard as a pattern to mark the holes in the next one. I've bit the bullet. I've marked this guard up. I've got the correct length, and I'll double check because, you know, anxious. So that's the one I took off that I like. I've offered that up to my torpedo, which is just below you on the floor, to check the front guard of the torpedo is the same, and I'm within, you know, 5 mil to a centimetre, just offering up to the side. I use the alloy guard to draw on a pattern line, and I'm going to attempt to cut this out. I've put a new blade on, treated myself to one. Stand back while I cut. Now you can't see it, but funnily enough, the other half of the guard fell directly into the rubbish bin. And there it is. not a bad cut. I did take my time and didn't rush into it because inevitably that's how I get things wrong. And I get things wrong pretty regularly. Just going to put a flap disc on and give that a little tidy up. Now, if the profile of this isn't exactly to my liking, I can sit with the flap disc and, you know, neaten it up a little bit more. So it's not going to be the end of the world. I think this is the one. I'm pretty happy with that. This one's going to be the front. It looks better than the back one, but they both look good. So there's the front guard. Good result. Here it is. I've marked and drilled the centre off the other guard and just rechecked that this is the front. So I've got the original, I've got the hardware. Sorry, not original hardware. Pop that up in there. We'll feed the bolt through. And I'll get the washer. Now I'm putting a little flat washer in there and the spring washer because I want to be able to tighten these up reasonably tight, but I don't want to mark the guard and I don't want to make a mess of the guard. So I like to put the hardware in as I'm going, just so you get a better outcome. And all the nuts and bolts that you think you need, you've got in the bike. Now that hole should line up. I've dropped a nut on the floor. I'll find that and then we'll do it all up. Well, there it is. There's a little bit of a tweak up on the front guard and a little bit of a tweak back. I wonder if it's because I've tightened these really tight and created a flat spot. Could be. They need a little tweak left and right. You know, you can tweak them a little bit. But overall, until I get the correct front wheel in, that is absolutely stunning. I'm really, really pleased with it. The rear guard you've already seen. I'll get you off tripod. Let's have a walk around. I hope you're as happy with it as I am. Certainly, vast improvement on where we were at the start of the day. Here we go. Bike's tied down and looks good. The front guard is tweaked a little bit out at the bottom and perhaps a tiny bit at the top. Is it because I've flat spotted it with the mounting bracket? Not sure. Also with the front wheel, there's no front axle in. It's just a piece of 3/8 round rod. And so the front wheel needs to drop about 3/4 of an inch. That said, the front guard looks spectacular. Very, very, very pleased. I don't know whether you can see, but it's equidistant in the fork legs. Just a little gap and a little gap. Absolutely delighted. Front wheel's not sitting in the middle because there's no bearings in it. Think I'm going to get a reproduction hub and a bead edge rim and just put a completely new front wheel in it and run it with no front brake. Back wheel, you've already seen it, but the stand clip is on and I did fluff the stand clip up. There is an extra little hole hidden under here. I was not concentrating and talking to a mate and put a hole in the wrong spot. I can live with it. It's only us that know. Don't tell anybody. Stand, the rear guard looks great. The stand, now I've got a few stands at home that I'm going to have a crack at and see if any of them will fit. The brake block comes round to here, so I need a stand that mounts to here and goes to the rear guard. You know none of the ones I've got are going to fit, and I'm going to have to make another one. But anyway, let's see how that goes. That's it. I'm really, really pleased. The old guards are thrown in the corner and they'll go to a swap meet one day and I don't know, maybe somebody with a vision will pick them up and give me 10 bucks a piece for them or something. It is what it is. I learned a really valuable lesson. Sometimes using what I've got is not the solution. And it would have been a disappointment for the bike. And I think it would devalue the bike. It's only a little bike. It's never going to be mega money, but I don't need to drag the value of it down by making poor judgments. I did spend more than I intended when I started the day. The other guard that I had that's sitting down behind me there, you can't see, is just not the right profile for it. And I'll put that back into stock and use it another day. So I've spent pretty fair money on a pair of guards, but I'm going to make my own stays and get stuck into that. That's Flat Tank Journey for another week. I hope you enjoyed it. Send me a comment, say g'day. It's all good. Cheers. Have a good one.